The top 10 famous stories in the Bible.
Story number 1. The birth of Christ.
In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went to their own town to register.
So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him,
and was expecting a child.
While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born.
And she gave birth to her firstborn, a son.
She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no guest room available for them. Story number 2. Noah's Ark.
This is the account of Noah and his family.
Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. The Lord commanded Noah to build an ark in which his family and
every living thing of all flesh were saved from the flood.
Floodwater destroyed the wicked and all creatures
that lived on the land except those in the ark.
When the floodwater receded, Noah and his family exited the ark. Story number 3. The Good Samaritan.
In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers.
They stripped him of his clothes, beat him and went away, leaving him half dead.
A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine.
Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Look after him,' he said, 'and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have.'"
Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?
The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Story number 4.
The Crucifixion and Resurrection of Christ. They crucified 2 rebels with him, one on his right and one on his left.
Those who passed by hurled insults at him,
shaking their heads and saying,
"So, you who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days,
come down from the cross and save yourself." In the same way, the chief priests and the teachers of the law mocked him among themselves. "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself.
Let this Messiah, this King of Israel,
come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe." Those crucified with him also heaped insults on him.
Story number 5.
The Exodus. The Lord instructed Moses, "Camp by the sea at Pi-hahiroth. Pharaoh will pursue, and I'll gain glory over him." Pharaoh and his army pursued Israel as they left Egypt defiantly.
Israel feared greatly as the Egyptians approached, crying out to the Lord. Moses reassured them, saying the Lord would fight for them. The Lord told Moses to have the people move forward. Moses stretched out his hand,
and the sea divided, allowing Israel to cross. The Egyptians pursued, but the Lord demonstrated his divine power by saving Israel and drowning the Egyptians.
Story number 6. David and Goliath.
Philistines and Israelites gather for battle in the valley of Elah.
Goliath, a Philistine champion, challenges Israel's army.
David, son of Jesse, arrives at the camp and hears Goliath's taunts. Despite opposition, David offers to fight Goliath. Saul doubts David's ability, but David recounts his past victories. David rejects Saul's armor, opts for his sling and stones. David defeats Goliath with a sling, cuts off his head, and Israel triumphs.
Story number 7. The 10 Commandments. Moses declares the covenant at Horeb between the Lord and Israel. He reminds them of the direct encounter with God on the mountain. The Lord commands, "I am your God, who brought you out of Egypt. You shall have no other gods before me," he declares. Prohibition against making idols and worshipping them follows. Misusing God's name is forbidden, with severe consequences.
Sabbath observance is commanded, remembering their slavery and liberation.
Honor to parents is mandated for a good life in the promised land. Prohibitions against murder,
adultery, stealing, and false testimony are stated. The command against coveting concludes the proclamation, written on 2 stone tablets.
Story number 8. Jesus feeds the 5,000. Jesus invites his disciples to rest in a desert place. They depart privately by ship but are followed by a multitude. Jesus is moved with compassion, seeing them as sheep without a shepherd. He teaches them many things as the day passes. Disciples suggest sending the people away to find food. Jesus tells them to give the crowd something to eat. With only 5 loaves and 2 fishes, Jesus miraculously feeds 5,000 men, with 12 baskets of leftovers collected. Story number 9. Jesus turns water into wine.
At a wedding in Cana, Jesus and his disciples are present.
When the wine runs out, Jesus' mother tells him. Jesus instructs servants to fill 6 stone water jars. He turns the water into wine, surprising the master of the banquet. This miracle reveals Jesus' glory, and his disciples believe in him. Story number 10.
How to enter the kingdom of heaven. Jesus answered, I tell you the truth, no one can enter the kingdom of God unless he is born of water and the Spirit.
Flesh gives birth to flesh,
but the Spirit gives birth to spirit.
You should not be surprised at my saying, backward you must be born again.
And he said, Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.